Welcome back to Nonsense, I'm Chris, and the Season 9 premiere of Rick and Morty is, holy like, I was not expecting to be blown away this much. Strongest season premiere of any season so far, in my opinion, and given that I was 100% right in my trailer breakdown when I specifically said that these squiggles had to be from them traveling outside the finite curve to see Evil Morty, plus the fact that they've never premiered a season with a canon episode like this. They always do a canon Evil Morty episode in odd-numbered seasons, but never in the opening episode. I'm gonna predict that this will be the first season where they double dip, possibly ending the season with another canon Evil Morty episode, especially since they end this one with an actual Marvel-style post-credit scene setting up a sequel instead of the usual funny ones we get. And the episode itself was amazing. Literally over 100 details to go through, including some ridiculous fight scenes which themselves contain a lot of details you'd miss if you don't go frame by frame, but the entire episode is basically just,
he's got a big ol' crush on you.
I'd like to deny it, Morty, but I'm pretty irresistible.
So let's break it down, starting with the title, There's Something About Morty, which is a reference to the 1998 film There's Something About Mary, starring Cameron Diaz and Ben Stiller, and the plot of the movie is aligned with the episode, basically just multiple guys instantly fall in love with this lady Ben Stiller likes, but it should be something about Rick since he's the stand-in for Mary. The episode opens on the family enjoying the new pool I assume Rick installed. The shot mimics a lot of overhead pool shots in a lot of movies, but between that, the cheating theme they push, and the ending slap, it kind of feels to me like they're parodying another movie as well. I just can't put my finger on what. Though it might just be using the tropes, because Dan Harmon, the creator of the show, always says he doesn't like doing parodies unless it's mixing like 3 movies together. Like Lawnmower Dog is a mix of Lawnmower Man, Inception, and Nightmare on Elm Street, at least. I just love that they're doing it with rom-com movies now and mixing in an insane amount of action. And they clearly got 7-Eleven to pay for some of that extra animation.
I don't give 7-Eleven enough credit.
I also want to point out that despite Rick hiding Evil Morty from Morty, he seems to be leaving the door open now, an interesting metaphor for him being a lot more open to connection than he was earlier on in the show. The few seconds we see his phone screen for, it's just empty text bubbles. He puts it down, though, making Morty want to know who he's texting. The beer he's making auto-cooling is just a regular Foamies brand he always drinks. The device seems to have wires plugged into an ice cube, presumably to power the cooling technology. This little squidclops thing does not seem happy with Rick, and this is just a light bulb. Morty grabs Rick's phone though and ultimately discovers he's been texting with Evil Morty, but during the scuffle the squidclops is freed and scurries behind the sink. We never see it again, so I'm kind of wondering if that'll come back later in the season. They keep wrestling as the theme rolls, which, since it's the season premiere, will break down. The first scene is of Beth rolling dice for some kind of D&D board game, Jerry as the bard with a broken lute and a million blades inside him, Morty's a ripped barbarian, and Summer's an elven archer. But Beth rolls a 1, which makes everyone sad before she blows up, and you can see the explosion in her eyes for a few frames right before she does. Then just a simple shot of Rick and Morty fly fishing on an alien world, Rick pushing the family dash from the Incredibles style in a big boot with a smiling sun in the corner, Beth and Jerry as rainbow unicorns, then Rick winning the Space Olympics on behalf of Earth. 9 seasons in, I still want to see an episode about them stealing a baby Cthulhu. After the theme though, they keep arguing about Evil Morty, with Rick saying he's only talking to him because Evil Morty has been blackmailing him with using the Omega device against the rest of the family. Rick compares him to Q from Star Trek, which is an insane comparison. I mean, Q is like, not quite an all-seeing god, but for all intents and purposes is basically a god, also an entire society of gods, also ultimately kind of a good guy who helps humanity. He basically judges humanity on whether or not they're a threat to everything, which does kind of seem like what Evil Morty does both in this episode and in general with Rick, at least until the very end of the episode, albeit like Q with kind of nefarious methods. But since Rick never responded, Evil Morty just shows up and demands Rick come with him, inviting Morty along too, who chooses to join. In the base, we see what I assume is a trophy shelf from the other adventures they're implying Rick's been having with Evil Morty. Like each one is like the USB from the end of the boss fight later in the episode. Down here, he's got another spacesuit and some guns. He then shows Morty why Rick has been helping him, the Omega device threatening to wipe out the rest of the family, Rick included. But honestly, given that this thing they go fight is legitimately a threat to the central finite curve, I feel like he could have just asked Rick without threatening the family part, but whatever. Guess he's really trying to earn that evil in his name, or he sucks at socializing and only knows how to scheme. In the screens showing the alternate family members, we've got a lot of Easter eggs. Starting here with Doofus Rick from Season 1, Episode 10, Mooch's family from the last season, Hellraiser Beth, I guess this version back in Season 5, Episode 5 really liked the Hellraisers and chose to join them. This is actually our Beth, judging from the sunglasses, bathing suit, and new pool, a miniaturized Jerry, a Jerry getting swarmed by flies, some kind of fawn Jerry, a cyborg Summer, a cyclops Summer, and a bearded Summer, some kind of warrior Rick, and just a regular Rick. Evil Morty uses his eye patch to activate his display that shows the central finite curve, and explains there's an entity that converts everything to more of itself, threatening to take over the multiverse. His drone is labeled Larkspur 11787. Larkspurs are a very pretty and also toxic flower, generally symbolizing positivity though, and 11787 is the area code for Smithtown, New York. Can't be a coincidence there. He then says that they can't portal there because the entity can't learn their portal tech, which we see later on that it can absorb and recreate technology. So they take off on the ship and Morty gets a little jealous when Evil Morty works on a special matter container using his cyborg arm. They get to the entity who's eating a planet and attacks them as they approach. Rick generates a safety suit for Morty, who protests but puts it on before it shrink wraps around him and turns invisible until it's needed. Evil Morty and Rick start talking tech, making Morty even more jealous as Evil Morty collects a sample of the entity into his container. But I do want to point out, this whole scene, starting from when he blasts the hole in the wall, it's not that he blasted his way into a room. Rick is actively firing a beam forward to create a hole for them to fly through while it closes behind them, all the way through to the core, which gives me major Invincible Season 4 vibes, and the whole sample collection feels kinda Hail Mary to me as well, honestly. Anyways, he stores the sample in his cybernetic arm, which also seems to be processing it internally. They finally blast their way into the core, and the entity greets them, voiced by Tilda Swinton herself, and looking like a cross between Galactus, Brahma, and the Moonfall nanites. It attacks, causing 3 different reactions: terror, concern, and thrill. The windshield finally breaks, so Rick ejects it and they jump ship, but first, for 6 frames, you can see Morty in the back holding on for dear life. Once they jump though, you can see for a split second in the back that the ship makes its escape back through the wall. Rick starts off shooting lasers from every limb and his eyes, and Evil Morty sticks to just from his hands. Rick whips out some energy chainsaws, then dual pistols, throwing one to Morty, who attaches something to it that transforms it into a much bigger gun, and then they just clean house. But it doesn't matter because he keeps just creating more of himself. Rick splits his arm in 2, shooting lasers from all 4, and Morty is clearly doing the Superman pose here, and as usual with him, he does not fire a shot without hitting a target. He takes all these guys out in under a second. But the entity manages to catch Rick, though can't get through his shields to infect his matter, so Evil Morty scoops Morty up, using him as a human shield occasionally, before shooting a little missile containing some of the entity's own matter, which creates a big cloud that he hides them in as he attaches a spray tip and shakes up the matter container like a spray paint can to disguise themselves as the entity. He tells Morty to plant some bombs. Meanwhile, Rick's shields are still holding up to the entity's attacks. Morty is immediately caught with explosives, the entity realizing it's not actually him, but when it absorbs the bombs, it starts glitching out, and Rick reveals the bombs contained code to reprogram the entity's nanites to compress. So all of the entity starts flowing back into the main body, which shrinks and compacts down into a little USB, which Evil Morty pockets, and I'm just gonna say it, there's no way the writers aren't saving that USB to be a threat later on, especially given that we've seen Evil Morty store stuff inside his cybernetic arm. They left him in the time prison at the end of the episode with his eye patch, so for sure he has his robot arm. He probably still has the USB, and they went out of their way to establish in forced exposition that the entity could destroy the entire multiverse, including the central finite curve, and Evil Morty just pocketed it. I'm saying it, there's no way that USB doesn't come back. There's even a chance, if the writers really want to go down this path of making Evil Morty actually evil instead of just a victim of Rick's who wanted out, what they could do is say that he actually just used Rick to get his hands on the entity for some other goal. Not sure whether they're going for a redemption arc with EM or just the straight villain route though. But let me know what you think in the comments. EM and Rick talk about how different this fight was from the previous week's adventure, making Morty feel more insecure and jealous, which EM enjoys, so he taunts him by making them go out for waffles at Diney's, where he keeps trying to make Morty jealous. And when Rick goes to the bathroom, he even tells Morty he's gonna take Rick away from him. He seems to just be messing with him, but he also definitely enjoys his time with Rick, and Rick clearly enjoys the adventures with EM, even if they are blackmailed. EM also mentions that Rick showed him some time travel stuff in an attempt to make Morty jealous, setting up the time pausing device for later. But Rick comes back and they finally head out, and EM portals home with the milkshake glass and is, for once, caught off guard by something. His base has been trashed and defaced with at least 2 spray-painted wieners, the Omega device destroyed, and no sign of the ideal hostage family he had inside. He scans the device and tries to pull up the blueprints, but it says file not found. He then checks some other project files, starting with LUCS-LY93. I could not find any info on this one, but if you recognize it or any of the other ones, please leave it in the comments. 1-NDER-Craft, some kind of injector, Dujimo25, a little robot guy, and finally Chillstone, which is the time-stopping device he uses at the end. But when he goes back to the Omega device plans, they're just gone every time. And he finally spots a Polaroid of Rick mooning him. So he calls him, but Rick has already blocked him, leaving him fuming as Rick and Morty make their way through the interdimensional space back to their dimension, and Rick explains that he modified the Omega device and put the plans themselves into the Omega device and activated it. So while Evil Morty could usually probably come up with a design again with the knowledge he already has, now when he thinks about the Omega device or his plans or design, he'll forever just think of an empty space. But again, we opened the episode with EM picking up another Doomsday device, an even more dangerous one actually. They also fly past a giant olive-looking thing, which has to be a reference to Dan Harmon's other show, Crapopolis, since Tyrannus always wears an olive pin over red and blue. I also love how they shatter through the dimensional wall when they get back home. Rick lands pretty roughly, but it's because he's in a rush to pull this awesome giant lever that teleports the whole house into a bunker dimension. He brings out the big guns and the armory, saying Evil Morty will be coming for them now and that they have to be ready, and mixed in with all the tech weapons is a cannon. He then sets up a whiteboard to explain who Evil Morty is to the family since only Morty knows. First there's blueprints for his portal gun and eye patch, blueprints for his interdimensional ship and the X that was in EM's files when they couldn't be found, pictures of him in the Citadel and then escaping the Citadel. There's this spiky building, which is where we first met Evil Morty when he was using tortured Mortys as camouflage, a picture of him and the episode's Rick certified by the Citadel, the shot of him turning around in Season 1 Episode 10, meaning Rick was actually suspicious of him even back then, and a random picture of a Rick and Morty and another blueprint of some kind. Don't recognize the device, but let me know if you do in the comments. I also like that they got food from Bunker Burger. Rick then gives them all body armor pills that he says can protect them from only a few hits from Evil Morty, and tells them that his giant hand laser takes 20 seconds to recharge and seems to drain him somehow. He also points out military looking Gene and says that all their friends and neighbors in this dimension have gone through combat training. So when Summer asks,
"Is Bunker Gene from this dimension, or you think Rick brought him here?"
Seems like
the answer is they are from this dimension. Morty follows Rick back to the garage feeling insecure because of how well Rick and Evil Morty work together, but Rick just keeps reiterating that there's nothing to be insecure about and that he finds EM annoying. And speak the devil, they hear commotion outside and spot a hole forming in the bunker ceiling, so they arm up before his ship crashes through the ceiling, but as soon as it lands, all the cars blink red lights underneath before blowing up in Rick's first trap. All the turrets and Rick and Morty start firing, but only hit his robot butler as he uses some kind of phasing or decoy tech to get the drop on them. Rick fires, but the shields deflect it before he uses this crazy explosion tech that melts Rick's body away, and we see he's currently using robot hands but not a full skeleton. And in a rare moment of being nervous, Rick says,
That's cute. How many of those you got left? Like 2? Is it 2?
I don't know why, but I find that line delivery so funny. EM goes full Miss Marvel though and flicks Rick into the house, where Rick definitely retreats to move to a new body while one of his robots takes his place. That or he's just mastered the art of uploading himself into a new body in under a second. Either way, Morty fires his big hand laser at Rick, who massively overpowers it with his face lasers, though still not breaking Morty's shields, who manages to melt away its skin and grab it by its Doc Ock arms, smashing him through this lady's cute dog-themed home with weapons everywhere and a sign that says "War Not Love." It's definitely this dimension that has the crazy bunker people. Morty's already using his shield arm and chucks the Rick out of the neighborhood, only to be attacked by a giant house Mecha Rick, which I do believe is actually being operated by the real Rick, and Morty can enlarge his shield and grow arms and legs in order to fight it. I mean, despite losing the war, Morty is here facing Rick's arsenal with nothing but what he has on him. Imagine if it was just the other way around, but after taking a beating, Rick explodes out of the Mecha Rick's face and wraps around Morty's shield, seemingly shrinking it down a little, but Morty releases a laser wire grid of some kind, chopping Rick into pieces. He then lasers his skull off and yoinks his brain out as well as the unibrow. He then walks towards Morty holding the brain, and we get this amazing Flintstones, Jetsons, Hanna-Barbera callback and hilarious gag to break the tension. We then get this bit where they just scream at each other because their nanites are fighting and we just can't see it. When they finally draw on each other again, Morty interrupts, and in the tussle, I checked frame by frame, Evil Morty does not lose his eye patch, it just disappears between frames. After his terrible plan fails though, we see it's made of nanites now, so he can just retract it at will. He dodges all of Rick's shots and launches back into the air, but Rick has used TARDIS technology to expand the space inside of this net, and filled it with targeted explosives and energy weapons. He survives, but his shields finally break. He tells them he hates them, and Morty says he's just jealous of their relationship, but Evil Morty is already running away and hacking the turrets. But as you may recall, he has to manually operate the devices he controls with those things, so when they fire randomly, Rick and Morty realize what's going on and sprint inside to find the family kicking the shit out of him since he has no shields or nanites left, and they have the bubble shields from earlier. He tries his hand laser but misses, and the family remembers Rick said it took 20 seconds to recharge, so they all go in to attack, but he uses his final move, the thing Rick had been waiting for and planted in Morty's mind, the time pausing device. But as he seems to genuinely be about to kill Rick, the time police from the season 2 premiere show up to arrest him, voiced by Keegan-Michael Key again. He surrenders since he's essentially depowered tech-wise, not that he's powerless. We get a classic perp walk shot and Jerry giving a statement to police in a very TV style, as Rick reveals he tipped the cops off and manipulated Evil Morty the whole time. Evil Morty complains he used the cops to win, but Rick doesn't care. The cops leave and Rick says,
Season 9, baby. Only an indefinite number more.
After the credits though, we see Evil Morty surprised at the lack of security in Time Prison, and it's obviously a setup for his escape. Like I said, he has his eye patch, clearly his robo arm, and probably the multiverse destroying USB stick inside of it that can destroy the entire central finite curve and every other universe. This isn't over. I do see two paths though. I could see them using the fact that they opened with a canon episode as an excuse to close with one as well, or I could see them going the other way with it, making us feel his lack of presence in order to explain some major changes in Evil Morty's behavior, and not bring him back till the very end of season 11, because again they only do Evil Morty episodes in odd-numbered seasons, so it could basically be 3 full seasons without an Evil Morty appearance if they wait till the end of season 11. But I'm kind of leaning toward them using it as an excuse to double dip on the canon episodes this season. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Regardless though, he has a multiverse destroying weapon. That's not going away. If you notice anything at all that I missed, please leave it in the comments. I'll make a follow-up video at the end of the season with all the additional details you guys point out in the comments like I did last season. I'm going to be doing my best to get these out Mondays, the day after the episodes air, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I'll see you next Monday.
I'd like to deny it, Morty, but I'm pretty irresistible.